there's a list of, I've got 3, possibly 4 people that want to speak. I've got Audrey, JR, and Kim, and I'm not sure about Stephanie. I see her on the screen now, but I heard she was getting kicked off.
Do you okay, so I guess we can start. Do you want to call them in? I'm sorry, but you did it last week. I thought it worked out okay.
Sure.
I don't have an issue with that. Okay.
Okay, Audrey, can you get yourself off mute?
Hello, Audrey Shudak, 21 Green Meadow Lane. Hello. All right, so just a quick, last week I didn't say how grateful I am for how wonderful the teachers have been during this time of transition. Obviously, coming from a teaching background, it's still been a challenge because I'm teaching my own kids at home, but the teachers have been wonderful and engaging with the kids, so many thanks to them. My only note today is just about the agenda that went out. I know it was really confusing and it led to kind of a lot of questions. So one thing that I just noticed that I wanted to mention was that in one spot it refers to the Student Opportunity Act, which I know is the same as school choice, but in another spot it did call it school choice instead. So just kind of making sure that we're always calling it the same thing, or in parentheses put school choice, because I know it created quite a uproar on Facebook this week. So, but other than that, let's keep on chatting about it. That's it.
Okay, thank you.
JR?
I know it's, I do want to say though that I appreciate that the Student Opportunity Act agenda item is actually the Student Opportunity Act from DESE. So that is a specific agenda item, not relative to school choice, but thank you.
Okay, anything else on that one, or are we good? Okay, JR?
Hi, good evening. I hope everybody can hear me. Hope everybody's well in this time of craziness that we're going through, and everybody's effort, not just all the teachers, as well as, you know, the school committee and all the other boards that are meeting in this trying time. I'm going through the same thing as well. It's hard to keep going with this, and you never know what's going to happen tomorrow. My only question was, you know, I've been seeing a lot of things on Facebook this week, haven't really commented on much. I just, you know, would like, I guess, some clarification on this pilot program that apparently moving 1 6th grade, if people want to go over to the high school, and keeping 1 6th grade classroom over in East Meadow. I don't know. I just saw like that there was a vote tonight. Maybe that was confused with maybe put on by accident. Not sure. I just don't know if, you know, a lot of people are doing votes, especially now in this you know, current situation that we're in, and who knows if school's going to even be back in session, you know, this year. And I would just, you know, was just tuning in tonight to see if there was, you know, could get some, you know, definite clarification on, you know, just this pilot program. And that's all. And I hope everybody's safe, family, everybody. And thanks again.
Thank you.
Any comments on that?
Well, I mean, are you asking me to comment on it?
No, I'm just asking because every time I keep stepping.
I know.
The only thing I was going to say was that hasn't been made. I mean, we didn't discuss that yet, which is why I didn't put it out there to everybody. So there was really nothing
Mike,
to talk about.
I can't hear you.
All I was saying was what he asked about wasn't something that was out there to the full committee yet. So I'm not sure how it got out to the public.
It was on the agenda.
But there was a very specific mention as to exactly what it was. So that's the piece that confuses me.
I saw it on.
Oh, okay.
But I don't know who posted that on Facebook that way to where you knew exactly what it was.
Posted that on Facebook about not moving all of 6th grade in 2021 and maybe partially moving it. I could find the post if you wanted me to.
Okay, all right. I just know that in fairness to the rest of the committee, I've really tried to not get into things that we haven't discussed yet. It's just, to me, that seems like the fair thing to do. But I'm sorry, I don't mean to digress.
Okay, next is Kim.
Kim Goldsmith, 239 Taylor Street, Granby. I just wanted to say that when I saw the agenda personally, it was very discouraging. I keep seeing a lot of talk about sixth grade and proposals and pilot plans and this, that, and the other thing, and I just don't understand why there isn't anything else being discussed. I mean, there's other options in the building. People have mentioned several other ones. They have been mentioned by the superintendent in the past, and I just don't understand why we're jumping to a pilot program when why isn't the pilot program, let's try to keep pre-K through 6? And then if that doesn't work out, then maybe try another pilot program. It's just very discouraging that every school committee meeting, is turned into, let's try to figure out how to move sixth grade into the high school. And especially right now when there's parents and kids, in distress, there's families with family members dying. This is just a really poor time to bring this up. And it's just this agenda today was very discouraging to me when I saw it. That's all.
All right, Mike, those are the only people that I had for comments. I don't know, Stephanie, I don't know, did you want to comment? I had seen your name, or you're good, okay. All right, Mike, I think it's on to you for the rest of the agenda, unless you want me to run through it, it's up to you.
Oh, I got it. The next item is, do we have Marcus? Did Marcus make it with us? Is he even on the email distribution list for the Zoom meetings? Do we know?
I actually don't know.
Okay, so I don't see him up here, so we're just gonna move on to the new business then. And that brings us up to the Opportunity Act, the Student Opportunity Act.
Okay, so the Student Opportunity Act has been on the agenda for a few times. It is the legislative directive to use a process to identify how we are going to spend the increases in Chapter 70 funding that came as the result of the Student Opportunity Act. However, with that being said, with us not being able to meet the public and get their input prior to the deadline for submission, the commissioner has asked that we hold those plans until further notice. So I just wanted to put out there that we're aware that we have to comply with developing the plan. We were going to meet with school councils to gather their input and thoughts and then present the plan. However, we've been asked to hold at this point. So just giving the committee an update on that.
Thank you.
Okay, it says vote next to it, so there is no vote.
Mike, I'm sorry. Can we ask everyone to mute their lines, because it's already pretty spotty and we can't really hear much when there are multiple noises. Thank you.
So it says vote. I just want to make sure that there is no vote to this.
Right. At the time of the agenda, there was supposed to be a vote, but in the interim of posting the agenda, DESE came out with a guidance statement that said, please hold voting on any of the plans,
Okay.
if we haven't done so already.
Okay, so this has to do with the very.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay. And when we spoke about this the last time it came up, you mentioned there's certain things we have to do, but it wasn't a heavy lift. Is that still accurate?
No. Yes. Our Student Opportunity Act increase isn't substantial. Our Chapter 70 funding did not go up substantially, so the requirements are for Granby to fill out a short form, and that, again, the heavier part of the lift is to get public input into the plan. But we didn't receive an awful lot of money, so there isn't a lot of discussion around what to do with the minimal funds that we did receive.
Okay. So it's not going to take us a lot of time except for getting a meeting to get the public in to really get this thing. Yeah, okay. Then the next item is the building use.
Yeah, so building use is
Right, so,
something.
go
Oh, sorry.
ahead, Adam, sorry.
I'm not sure if Ally's on, but it's something that Ally and I have been working on. We started it prior to all of this going on, and it's kind of went on the back burner. But to be short about it, we want to draft a policy to start charging fees to outside organizations to use our facilities. Ally and I, mostly Ally, have done a majority of the legwork on this. And over the next few weeks, we will be drafting a building use policy for the committee to see.
Adam, didn't we already have a policy? We signed contracts with a few organizations annually for them to be able to use. Is this different than that, or is this somewhere?
Yeah, so it would those would be a part of it. This would just be kind of a uniform policy that would include any organizations that's coming into our facilities, either East Meadow or the high school, or using our athletic fields, and setting a price for them to use those fields. So again, we've been doing a lot of that work, and we're going to finalize a draft proposal, a draft policy that the committee can see.
Is there any example of what type of organizations? Are we talking about Granby-based organizations or possibly outside?
So the few that come to mind, at least for us, are GAA, which uses our gym, the athletic fields. It'd be Boy Scouts that use the high school cafeteria. It would be the Immaculate Heart of Mary that uses East Meadow for CCD. So those are the three that come to mind immediately, but it would be for any other outside organization. When I say outside, it could be within Granby or outside of Granby, but whatever organization coming in to use our facilities, coming up with a fee structure to charge them.
All right. And those two of those that you mentioned were the ones that we typically sign a contract with annually.
Yep.
Immaculate Heart of Mary and GAA.
Mm-hmm.
So this is really applying the same principles for other folks who may be interested in using the facilities.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep. You're welcome.
So one thing though that does, and again, I don't want to get in front of this here. I don't want to put the cart in front of the horse here, but one thing that does concern me though is the pricing, because a few of these organizations are really not, they don't really have money. And yet it's a town building. So I just want to make sure we understand that piece too, and what we're going to do for some of these organizations.
Yeah, Mike, totally understood. So we're looking out. We're looking to other districts, how their fee schedule is constructed. We've reached out to the town of Granby to see how their facility building use fee policy was structured. So we're doing our due diligence, and we are keeping that in mind. Like maybe a Boy Scout that's a not-for-profit might not be able to pay to use our facilities. We totally have that in our sites, and that will be part of us developing that policy.
Okay, I just want to make sure that there was something in there, because I know like the Board of Health does waive their fee for the food permit for the in-town not for profits.
Yep. We're certainly doing our due diligence. That's an excellent point. It's one that we know, it's on our radar. So we will certainly be focusing on organizations like that may not be able to pay facility use fees, but it's certainly in our policy.
Okay. All right.
I apologize because it was kind of cutting out on me. Did you say that you were going to create a fee schedule for us to see? Because is this a votable thing, or is this just an FYI thing? I missed the whole beginning of what you said, Adam. I'm so sorry.
It's okay. So this will be an actual policy, a building use policy. And then within that policy would be a fee schedule that we set. So the policy would be need a vote by the committee.
Okay, anybody else? Jen, Jim?
Well, what we did have one in the late 2000s. Basically, it was when there was not a custodian in the building. If they wanted to use it for gym or something, they had to make sure a custodian was there, and they'd have to pay some of that. The GAA used weekends would always pay anyway because they got to have a custodian there. Immaculate Heart of Mary paid for the custodian who was working there. Plus, they just gave a donation, a one-time donation, usually went to the East Meadow School where it was held, to be used for different things. So I don't know if that's going to be any different. But anyway, we'll wait and see what you come up with. That's fine. But I would look back at, there's got to be something in the files from the mid 2000s or so.
Yeah, yep, and we do, again, the two major organizations right now are GAA and the Immaculate Heart of Mary. What they pay for currently is the use of a custodian. And we are looking to just change that policy a little bit. So we have looked at that policy. We're not gonna recreate the wheel here, but we would like to make some changes to that policy.
Okay.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, then C, the lunch prices, the increase in lunch prices.
Yep, and this is something that I believe it might have been a few months ago. I know I talked about this. I put it on the committee's radar just about how there is a federal average lunch price that districts need to meet. And right now we are below that. So one of the main reasons to explore possibly raising lunch prices would be able to come up to that federal average. So that's what this is. It was really just another reminder. Again, I brought it up a few months ago. It's one of those things that took a backseat to what's currently going on that I'll be working on over the next few weeks. And I'll have something, if not next meeting, maybe the meeting after that, to propose. So just a reminder that I am working on this, and it's something that we may be doing to start the new school year.
And just from my perspective, and I'll let others speak after I get this out. From my perspective, when you're putting this information together for us, you mentioned what it would take to get us to the average. But then you said there's a mandated amount. So I would kind of be interested to know, one, like in a list, where we are, what the average is and what the minimum is, right, to meet the threshold. Because I don't want to raise right now. I'm just thinking out loud. I probably wouldn't want to raise all the way up to the average if all we have to do is meet the minimum. And
so currently the average is $2.92, and we sit at $2.89. So we only have to come up an average of 3 cents to meet that that threshold. I will verify those numbers. I'm 99% sure on those numbers, but I will verify them and let you guys know. So yeah, it would only be coming up 3 cents to meet that federal per meal average.
okay, I for some reason
but
I just
again,
thought it was gonna...
Yeah, but again, not to get into too much detail, it was just put on the agenda. Honestly, it was put on the agenda probably 4 or 6 weeks ago before all of this started. And I honestly kind of forgot that it was on this agenda. But I am doing the work, and I'm looking at other districts. I'm doing due diligence, kind of like with the building use. So it's just a reminder that I am working on that. And it's something that I will present over the next couple meetings.
Just a quick question. When was the last time the prices were raised?
I want to say it was 3 years ago.
Okay, so it may be time then, yeah.
Yeah, and we're not talking about like a
Right.
dollar increase. We're talking like maybe 10 or 15 cent increase to the meals.
Okay. Thanks.
And free lunch and reduced lunch would still be part of that regardless of the price increase, right?
Correct.
Now that's a great point. It just made me think, do we, like historically, would we expect any kind of more people actually meet free and reduced, lunch because of if we raise our prices, or does that not matter?
Yeah, the price of the price of the lunches or the meals don't play into if somebody or if a family was to qualify for free and reduced.
Okay, I just thought I'd ask.
Yep. So just the free and reduced rate lunch would not change. We're talking about increasing the full paid amount. So the free and reduced lunches would not change.
Okay.
Just to clarify. And again, to clarify, no, the price of the meal does not matter if you qualify for free and reduced lunch.
All right. I just thought I'd ask. It's like, well, I could afford it here.
No, it's a
but
good question. Yep. No, it's a good question. Yep. Good question.
And then I think you're on for the next item, the increasing the threshold to collect past due school lunch balances.
Yep. And this would be something, not tonight, but we can discuss it tonight, but would require a vote in a subsequent meeting, maybe the next one or the one after that. But what I'm trying to do with this is we have a number of outstanding school lunch balances. Some range from families owing 30 cents and some range from families owing a couple $100. Now, some of those families could be moved on from the school system, and some of those families might currently still be here. The point of this is I'd like the committee to come up with a reasonable amount for us to then pursue going after past due lunch balances. I've asked the town to, and Steve Nally specifically, to kind of help us in collecting those by sending a letter out to families. And we're working on that. But the first step is to discuss the threshold of balances that we'd like to go after, whether it's anything over $5, anything over $10. I just like to set that threshold, and then we can move on with trying to collect them.
So the fact that you said there's no threshold, or that we have some with, the balances there that are high, that means that right now we don't do anything if a child comes up and they've already got a negative balance. I mean, they still get their meal, right?
Correct. So we can't deny them a meal. We can't deny them food, essentially. We can, we did this year put and Steve or David or anybody, maybe Bill, you guys can chime in here. I think it was a $25 limit. So if a student went into the negative by $25, they could not purchase additional a la carte or snack items. They would still be provided with a main breakfast or lunch, but they could not purchase any additional a la carte or snack items. So we did put something in place to try to limit the number of outstanding balances, but we cannot not provide a student with a meal.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't know it was a law. I just wanted to make sure that we weren't doing something like that. That's all.
Yeah,
Okay.
no, we cannot. We have to provide. It doesn't matter if they owe $1,000. We have to provide them with a lunch and a breakfast.
So do any of these cross over fiscal years?
Yeah, so that's a good point. So the main thing right now, I mean, not the main thing, but what we'd like to focus on now is students that are actually here that might have been a junior last year that are now seniors that might have a balance that, yes, carries over from year to year. And this came up with me and Steve because before students graduate and they get their cap and gown, they want that student to be caught up on any outstanding balances that they have. So this is where the kind of discussion originated. So we do have some measures in place to try to recover. I mean, letters are sent out by the school to families. So there are some steps in place. It's just very difficult to follow up. Yes, to answer your question, they do carry over. Some of them can carry over multiple years. Yes.
All right, anybody else want to ask?
No, it's not a question, but it's basically a quick comment and reminder. In the past, we had conversations around the fact that we want to be mindful in the way we remind the students and their families about their past due lunch collection. I'm sure we're still doing that, but just we want to make sure that it is done privately. It is done confidentially in a way that nobody else actually knows about it.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
There's
Thank
got to be something because Meredith I only put a few dollars on her account, and if she goes over, she comes back and she tells me. So she said there's something about a red light or something when she swipes her thing or something. So she knows right away. She's usually the one that tells me, besides the emails, that it's time to update it. So there's something that's done that the students are aware of.
That usually, in the past, obviously, with my kids as well, if, they were over, they would come back and let us know, and, we would replenish their accounts. But my reference is mostly to, pardon me?
So with plenty of guilt and everything, Mom, you didn't put any
Right,
money in my
exactly.
account.
Yeah. My comment was related to some conversations that we had, and Cheryl would remember, Mike and others, where we were hearing from some other communities, some other towns where kids were denied, and we don't do that. They were basically told verbally in front of everybody that their accounts were so much overdue that they may not be able to serve. We were good with that. I just want to make sure that because these are young individuals, that they don't feel like they are put on the spot. Otherwise, in your daughter's case, or my kid's case, it was a good reminder for them to come and give us a heads up. But not everybody may take it that way. If there's a better way of addressing it, that would be awesome.
So one of the things that we are trying to do is to lower the barriers to people accessing support for food insecurity. And so that we're doing with the Granby to Go program, but also in how we're helping people understand and navigate the free and reduced lunch process. Unfortunately, people often fall into a negative balance for a couple of different reasons. I'm with you guys. I just forget to put money on my kid's account, and then she comes in, yelling at me that, I'm a horrible mother, which there are times when I am. The fact that I forgot the lunch money isn't one of the reasons, but the other piece is, often we have families that fall off of free and reduced lunch, don't realize they've fallen off, and therefore engage in, their kids are still getting lunches and they don't realize it. So I think one of the things that we have to do, to Emery's point, is be very sensitive to the reasons why families fall into a negative balance, understand that, and then have a process for engaging those families, re-engaging those families, so that we can lower those balances, but be as respectful as we can. And also, the first and foremost is to get people who need food to lower the barriers to them accessing support. And I will say we are up to about 29%, David may be able to correct me, people who qualify for economically disadvantaged. And that number has been growing. And certainly with this COVID-19, we're probably going to see another increase over the next couple of months.
Yeah.
Right. Thank you.
I didn't have I forgot. I found out my son was buying everybody ice cream a couple times. We put an end to that quickly. Okay. The next item is the remote learning plan.
Sure. So that is actually in your executive session folder, but I did send you the draft earlier. It really does define, I think, for our families and our staff what the expectation is and what the goal is over these extended closure periods. We can certainly talk about it in more detail in executive session, because there's a memorandum of understanding that addresses it. And then we can come into open session again and let the people know what the outcome of executive session is.
Is that what you recommend? Or
Yes.
because I'm a little afraid, like I don't know how to do this on Zoom, go from one meeting to another and then back, right?
Yep. So you received a second invitation to a
Yep.
Zoom meeting for executive session only?
So Cheryl, I understand the memorandum part, but given that this is probably a document that everybody will be able to see, did we want to, or does this need to be approved in executive session for some reason? Is that what we're saying?
Well, the memorandum of understanding, I think, defines a good portion of the expectation, and then the remote learning plan actually
Okay, so this is not really
gives more detail.
a mandated or universally used plan. It seemed like it might be, because it's a pretty comprehensive document. So this is not something that all school districts are using across the Commonwealth?
So the guidance from DESE was to develop a remote learning plan when the extended closure lengthened to May 4th. Originally, we were closed for 2 weeks, and so districts were doing a real variety of things with their students. DESE came out with guidance that districts should be working together to ensure that within their geographic areas, there was consistency with a focus on providing equity of access for students. So with that, I do think most districts have a remote learning plan. They certainly are different given a district's resources and what they were able to accomplish in a short amount of time. I think ours in our area is pretty close to Ludlow. I worked pretty hand in hand with Dr. Gazda to develop it. I hadn't gotten too much input from some of the other communities, South Hadley, or Hatfield or Hadley.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
I
Oh,
can
I guess-
answer some of those questions. There are a lot of towns around who do not have them but are working on them. Just like when Granby started the remote learning before anybody else did, we're a couple of steps ahead with this process also.
Good.
Yeah, I think what happened was we immediately went into remote learning because we had done substantial development of our Blizzard Bags program. So teachers were pretty comfortable making that shift. So we did not miss 2 weeks of instruction. We just kept going. Where I think some of our surrounding districts took a wait and see and paused and didn't do a lot of instruction or assigning lessons and trying to come up with activities for their students. And now that the closure is till May 4th, again, DESE's directive changed to make sure that we were including special education students in our plans, and that that if we desired, we could still move forward in curriculum and instruction, but to do that mindfully so we could ensure that all of our students have access and are working equitably in a remote learning environment.
So I've been hearing, and I know it's I mean, it is what it is, but it's just rumors that we probably won't be going back in. Have you heard anything more on this, from the state? Like, has there been anything else, or is it still May 4th at this point?
Still May 4 at this point. And actually, we were having almost twice a week phone conferences with DESE, the Department of Public Health. Those have really waned recently. So I think they're taking a wait and see approach too. The latest guidance was around April vacation. There was a lot of discussion about April vacation. There's still a lot of continued discussion about transportation, paying for services that are not rendered, while having the goal of trying to keep people employed. So there's been a lot of discussion around the finances of the closure, but also the curriculum instruction and remote learning side as well.
Yeah, okay. So you're recommending, or you're saying that we should go into executive session now and then come back to the regular meeting?
No, we can wait for executive session at the end and then come, well, we could go to executive session now to review the MOA, because you've all seen the plan.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave this up to the rest of the group to kind of, but I would like to wait simply because I'm afraid I might not make it back. Something else go wrong. So I would feel better if we just did it at the end and there's just one more dial-up I have to do. But again, if other people want to do it now, I'm willing to give it a try.
That's fine.
I agree with doing it later, but we would still have to come back to let everybody know what the result is, right? So I guess I can go either way.
I'm fine either way.
Yeah,
So-
let's do it later.
Okay, so Cheryl, what do we have to do after we take our vote? Do we really need to come back and announce to everybody what we decided, or is it just get?
Mhm.
Okay.
Yep, just come back into open session and discuss what the outcome of the vote is for the MOA. I will say that the remote learning plan is ready to go to families tomorrow, given the outcome in executive session.
Okay.
So there won't be much of a delay. It's all ready to go. It's just a matter of following the steps to get it approved.
Okay.
Is
We're
that
gonna
the
have
only thing for executive session then?
Excuse me?
Is that the only thing for executive session, is to discuss the
Yes.
MOA that goes with it?
Yes.
Okay.
Are we going to have a brief finance conversation at one point? Is that part of our agenda today?
Under the old business.
Okay.
Yeah, there's something there under D in the old business, but we'll talk about more of that when we get there.
Okay. Actually, mine is related to this remote learning thing and something that Cheryl just brought up related to transportation. I can appreciate that there is some sensitivity around making sure that businesses are not going under and that they are, getting some support. But I would like to better understand whether or not this whole package that was put out there for small businesses and different types of businesses, will that not really make up for it? And the part of it that relates to our budget conversation is the fact that again, just for services not rendered, we will be obligated to really pay when schools are not really in any better shape than the rest of the institutions that we're looking at.
So Emery, I'm gonna I'll update us when in the old business, either during that finance talk or during budget update. But there's been a lot of talk around transportation. I actually had a phone call. Without getting into too much detail now, I had a phone call yesterday at the state level with all finance directors in the state that have First Student as their regular bus transportation vendor. And there were some ideas and some talk floated there that I will get into. And then I had a call with me, Andy Paquette, and Mark Chapulis, who are at Belchertown and Ware, who we share our busing contract with, about how we would like to handle paying at least First Student going forward. So those talks are ongoing, and I will share that information as we move down the agenda.
All right, thank you.
Yep.
Is that the same Mark that used to be with us? I just saw the email.
Correct. Yep,
Okay.
correct.
All right. So then we're going to move into, I guess, unless there's anything else, we're going to move into old business and the vote school choice. So the first question I had, and I didn't see it in the folder, but do you remember when we looked at this? Because I don't remember the numbers specifically, because you had them listed out by grade.
March 10th.
March 10th.
But she
Okay.
moved it to the folder now.
Oh, it's in our
there
folder?
now. Yeah, it got moved in late. And I don't know what page it is. Maybe two or three.
Yeah, I don't have it on the current folder. So but March 10th is when we discussed it.
You don't see it in the folder?
Yeah. And I refreshed it, but I don't see it.
I have two things in the folder for the school choice.
I'm looking at the printed one of March 10th, 2020. That's the one we're looking at.
Is it, Cheryl, is it different from the March 10th one? What you put in the school choice memo that was put in the folder that I can see, is that different than what was there?
It
for
shouldn't
March
be.
10th? Okay. I just wanted
No,
to
it
make
shouldn't
sure
be. I
that-
just cut and pasted.
What's the difference between the first one, the memo, and then the DocX? Just Google friendly?
Just somebody's opened it, I believe.
Okay.
And I apologize, I don't have quite enough bandwidth to do everything that I'm trying to do right now. So I'm on my phone trying to download the document. Okay, so I see Jen Millette is in it. Okay.
I'm in it too.
I'm in it now, and we're talking about page 3, right, where it says school choice seat request, and in there you have it broken out by grade, what we currently have, what's choice, proposed openings.
Yep.
I'm not in it, Cheryl, but I have the copy in front of me.
Okay.
Okay,
Thank you, Jim.
you're welcome.
Right, so, I mean, I don't, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I just basically wanted to give the committee a little bit more background. I think based on the conversation that I had heard, I also wanted to remind the committee that the strategic plan has a specific goal, number 4, regarding adequate resources. And for the benefit of folks who may be in my position who can't download everything they want to at the moment, that goal reads, in 5 years, we will have adequate resources that at minimum support a level service budget. Revolving accounts will hold a year's worth of revenue in reserve to address unanticipated expenses. Elected town officials will work collaboratively to address resource needs of the school department and eliminate structural deficits in the budget. And the school department will continue to focus on transparency and sharing of information to educate the community about the resource needs of the district. So basically, I wanted to try and give the committee a little bit more information based on some of the questions I was hearing. So in the first part of the memo, you will see the revenue for school choice, circuit breaker, and grants. And school choice is listed at $700,000 approximately, circuit breaker approximately $350,000, and grants in total about $350,000. And the percentages of the operating budget that those accounts cover. So school choice is about 8 to 10%, circuit breakers 4 to 5%, and grants are 4 to 5%, and that's for this year. And if I may just back up a little bit, the grants that we included are IDEA, which is our special education grant, our Title I, which is our support for economically disadvantaged students and families, circuit breaker, which is special education criteria for high cost tuitions and high cost IEP resources for students. And also Title IIA, which is our professional development grant, and Title IV, which is our preschool. I believe if Carol's on the line, she would be able to tell me. I'm pretty sure 4 is either EL or, no, 4 must be preschool.
Yeah, Title III is EL, which we don't have.
Okay, thank you.
So,
And Title III, we actually work with CES in a joint application.
so when I'm looking at the,
So I think they're, yep.
well, I just want to say, so when I'm looking at the next piece, I think that's
Yep.
great, right? School choice, and this is the number that equals more or less the offsets. I mean, there might be a little bit more money that's from separate things, but that's
Correct, Mike. Yep.
That offsets.
Mhm.
Okay. And again, for those people who are online watching who might not be as familiar with what I'm talking about, when you propose a budget to us, you created the total of what it costs to run the district, basically with what we had last year, like a level set budget, plus some new asks. Is that correct?
Correct. Yep. So that's so it's a total operating budget. Yep. Level service, and then if there are any additional asks. Correct. Yep.
And then on the other side, you then look at what we can get for net school spending, and then really what the difference is between your number, what it takes to run the district, and what we're going to get from the town and state on net school spending, plus the 305. And then this number for now, this isn't a great economic term, but you're going to plug the difference with this number. Is that?
Yeah, just so again, just a quick overview. Our budget, I build it what it takes to run our district. I then use what we get from Chapter 70, all those formulas, and then I take into account the in-kind costs that the town charges us, and all of that goes into our budget. I just want to make sure I included the in-kind in that. So you were right with everything, and I want to make sure that I include the in-kind because that goes into it.
Yeah, yep, that's fair. But just so that term offsets is really the plug that sits in between what it really costs the district to run and what we can get from the net school spending and the 305. That's that money that sits in the middle.
Correct. Yep.
Because
Correct.
what we get for net school spending plus the 305 is still not enough to run the district anywhere near the way we would like to run the district. But
correct. And in the last two budget years, we've used those offsets. So grants, circuit breaker, school choice, using them as effectively and as efficiently as possible. We have stayed off town floor asking for any additional money.
Right, because that's just, I mean, I don't think that's going to go very far. Now, then the next question I had on that next piece, you listed the balance, and I'm sorry, but when I see that balance, it doesn't equal the amount that we're spending. So it's a lot less than what we're going to spend.
Yep. So let me just kind of explain to you how it works. So couple points. One, the number was Chris provided a number to the public a couple months ago about where we had $600,000, and I'm going to use his term, Mike, and I know we differ over how we use it, but there were $600,000 of reserves sitting in accounts, revolving accounts at the school level. What was either neglected to be told or understood was that even though that money is already in the account, it's already spoken for. Like that money is already, we're going to pay salaries out of that. We're going to pay tuitions out of that. So in my mind, that amount is zero. So I want to be clear on that. Second, this balance that you see as of February is at that time when I reached out to Chris, is the actual cash balance that was in the school choice revolving account. Okay. Now we get about $64,000 worth of school choice payments every month. So if I take that $221,000, now just stay with me for a second because I got to bring up the spreadsheet. If I take that $221,000 that Chris provided me in February, and I add on, it's our payment a month is $63,463 for school choice. Okay. If I add that to the $221 balance that he gave me, at the end of June, we would have an actual balance in that account of $476,000. Okay. I'm having trouble hearing. We are going to use the rest of the year from that is about $260,000 to pay remaining salaries, and the salaries that we pay on school choice are custodians and teachers. So these are real quick, high level numbers. They're projections, but at the end of June, we would have about a cash balance in that account of $476,000. We're going to pay roughly $200,000 or so, or I'm sorry, $200,000 or so of salaries for the remainder of the year, which would then give us a balance in that school choice account to carry over next year to help then offset some of FY21's costs, and also, per the strategic plan, try to keep 1 year arrears balance in that account.
So that is the piece that I'm struggling with right now, because if you have 221 and you can get to 400 and something, but you still have to spend 200,000, that really just means you're going to have 230 or so thousand in the account when the year rolls. So the only way we can get to that figure that you put up at the top is to actually use money from next year that we haven't.
Exactly. Yes, exactly. So again, when I started a couple years ago and tried to effectively use offsets to help our budget and not go on town floor, there was 1 year where we had to use a majority of those offsets to do that. That was last budget year. We had to use a majority of those offsets to keep us off town floor asking for more money. Okay. What we're going to have to do now is, as we also try to build up to that 1 year in arrears, we are going to be dipping into that, I don't want to call it the current or next fiscal year amount to help us offset the budget. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess where I'm going, and forgive me, I'm just struggling with this little piece right here, because I thought we were at 1 year, and you're telling me we are pretty close to being at 1 year in arrears. But then I don't see how we have the 700,000 unless we're using money we haven't received yet.
Yeah, so that 700,000 for school choice is, so our projected school choice enrollment for next school year, so FY21, would be a revenue of about $700,000. Now that's going to fluctuate on a couple different things, but the projected revenue is $700,000. I'm using that projected revenue to then fund those offsets.
So is the projected revenue based on existing numbers of school choice or your projected requested numbers of school choice?
Nope, the actual school choice students that we have not opening any new seats.
So that's minus 11 from this year then? Because we
No,
have 11
so right now
graduating
in the
school choice.
right now in the projection, that is including, so that's a good point. So it would be at least replenishing the 11 seniors that graduate. But we're gonna, I think, get to that part of the conversation in a little bit, Cheryl, as we move along this document.
Mm-hmm.
Or we can talk about it now.
Well, I was actually just going to dive right into that piece, because that's like,
Yeah.
So
what it's all about, right?
Good
So that's
segue.
fine. So Jen, that's a good point. It's an excellent question. So that $700,000 is a projection based on filling the minimum of the 11 seniors that we are going to lose to graduation. If we don't replace the minimum 11 seniors that we are going to lose to graduation, we would have to reduce this year's budget by about $64,000, $63,800.
Okay.
Which is equate that to one person. We would have to cut one FTE. So that's a good point, Jen. I was going to get there. You got me there early. So that's a good question. It's a good point. So yes, again, just to be clear, that $700,000 projection for school choice is replenishing the minimal 11 seniors that we will lose to graduation this year.
So
Then, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead, Jen.
I'm probably jumping the gun because I'm known for that, but so why aren't we just looking at something that's proposing for 11 seats?
So that was actually going to be somewhat, so I was going to actually ask that, but in a different way.
Oh, well, you ask it better.
Well, I don't know if it's better, it was just different. What I was going to ask was, is the request for 23 actually an attempt to try to put us in a position where we're actually working towards that 1 year in arrears? Because if we strictly, based on everything you told me, if we stick with just the 11, we can get by, but we're not going to get ahead. Is that what you're saying?
For 1 year.
So, I just want to be careful that we're not opening up seats just so we have 1 year arrear in that specific revolving account. That would certainly help us. Again, that is best practice. That's the guidance. That's not necessarily what it has to be. To be honest, I would say if we did have $700,000 every year left over in school choice, we would be able to do additional things and not just use school choice to offset our budget. So that's best practice. We would love to get there, but we're not there. And I wouldn't make the statement that we're trying to open up seats to get us there. It would help us, but I wouldn't say that's the only reason that we're opening up seats.
Right. So I guess I don't even know how to ask what I'm thinking.
Well, give me a second, because I think so if we only approved 11, right? That gets us through 1 year. But then if I'm looking at the next few years, I think we're still going to end up in a bad spot, right? Because we're never, with the limitations we have now, with class sizes being what they are we going to be able to get to a point without going over? Like, I don't think we can just keep voting for exactly what we need to offset what just graduated without ending up into trouble. Is that not
Well,
correct?
I think there is an assumption there, Mike, that if we open seats, if you build it, they will come. And
Well,
it doesn't necessarily work that way. This is just a plan and just a proposal for us to hopefully get to a level where we can at least keep what we have. And if we can, in a meaningful way, in a thoughtful way, supplement those grades that do not have a sufficient number of students, all the better. But the fact of the matter, as you guys are all saying, we have been, dependent to a certain level on school choice revenue to be able to provide certain services, pay certain salaries. The school district has been doing very well in early 2010s or so. And then when everything started going down, the first thing that they had to hit was that school choice account. What we've been trying to do the last few years was rebuild that school choice account to a level where we would not at least find ourselves in a situation where 1 year's fluctuation or 1 year's dramatic changes would cause shock in the school district. We are creating that type of buffer, and that's the 1 year area that Adam is talking about. And that's a conversation that we've been having with the Finance Committee as well. And it was something that, I think, as Adam called it, it's good practice, best practice, and I think Finance Committee has been in support of that as well, because that really allows us to absorb any shock that may occur unexpectedly. Like, we are expecting some changes now, and we don't know what that means for the school district and our budget.
Oh, no, I get that, and I'm fully behind that. I'm just trying to make sure that I guess my point here is, if we were to take the cheapest way out, is that going to haunt us?
So again, Mike, and I think you scroll down and we're talking about it. So there's a chart, if you scroll down in the document, where it says FY21 and then 11. So that would be the number of graduating seniors that at the minimum we would like to recoup. If we don't, we would have to cut the budget by $63,800. At the end of next year, we would.
So that's like 11 or nothing. There's nothing in between, right? We could get 9 students, right? Because we're not really recruiting, right? So if it's not, is this an all or nothing? If we don't get 11, we have to cut by 6,300 or 63,800, or if we get 10, we get, is it less than that? Is it a per student rate? Is it 63,000 per student? So it's really like 63,000 times 11, or is it
no.
divided by 11?
Yeah, So school choice, the base amount you receive for school choice is $5,000, and then there's what's called the SPED increment. So if we're that school choice student is then receiving services within the district, you get an exponential amount on top of that $5,000. For us, it's about an average of $5,800 per school choice student that we receive. So that's the average that I'm using to project these amounts, is $5,800 per kid. So it's 11 kids at $5,800.
And then the next thing, and I think we've alluded to it, is even if we open up 23 seats, are we going to get 23 seats filled? And then what happens if we don't, right? Do we have to worry about that at some point in the future?
Not when you have 23.
Say that again, Mr. Petrus?
Not if you have 23. If you got 23, that's not going to be an issue. You're talking just the 23 at the elementary school? That won't be an issue because you certainly have more than you need, except we'll get into the squeeze issue. And what happens if you get Granby kids coming in, which I heard was an issue before. Granby kids move in and all of a sudden you got to take them, they're part of us, and then all of a sudden we get squeezed for space. That was the issue, I think, that drove all our discussion earlier. What was historically, what's been the school choice numbers in the past couple of years? I was not part of the committee. How many kids school choice in September of 2019? You might have that number.
So there's a chart in that document that has those numbers.
That's current, but I mean, how many came in a year ago? How many came in?
No, there's a chart that has since 1996, perhaps.
Okay, I'll have to look.
It has the financial impact of in and out, and then it also has the numbers, I believe, and it also then adjacent to it, Jim, has the graph, which is a graphical representation of the difference between choice in and choice out. And I believe the graph is from 2010 to 2019.
Which document is that graph in? Because the one that I was just in, I didn't see with all the years.
It's just the page before the table that you're looking at.
Yeah, it's on page.
With the bar chart.
It's on page 2.
Okay. Sorry.
Page 2.
It's got some highlights in yellow.
Yep.
Those I think were spectacular years because those were the highest numbers.
Right. Those were the years when the district was very fiscally solvent. It was able to move in a positive direction. It had resources. And I think part of that is the reliance on the school choice.
So I guess we come back to the other thing though. So, I mean, I'm just looking at East Meadow here, right? If we opened up 23 in East Meadow, are we going to fill 23?
Well, we don't really have room for 23 in East Meadow, right?
Well, I mean, let's just leave that aside for a second, right? Because that has little to do with what I'm asking. If we open up 8 for first grade, if we opened up 3, are we going to get 3 kids to choice in for first grade?
I would guess you probably would. 3 is a fair number. That's just adding one more to each class. 3 is a fair number.
Right.
That's not going to change anything, and that seems to be very reasonable.
Well, I get that, and I understand that that's an easy one, because if you look at the class size at the end of that, it's like a lot of these numbers I don't have any issue with, but my concern is really, I think what Emery was saying, if we allow that, does that mean we're actually going to get them? Like, if we build it, will they come? I don't know. That's what I'm asking.
Well,
Do you have a sense, Cheryl, of how many people, are there people already interested? And is it primarily just the lower grades? I'm sorry, a double-edged sword. Do we still get money for kids that choice in at the high school and older level too, right? Like, it's not just, you don't just get the $1,500 for the lower grades?
all one and the same.
Okay.
Correct. Yep. So I don't know if Bill can hear me or Jacqueline, where we're at right now with school choice requests. I do know we have some, but we haven't been able to respond to those quite yet until we vote.
I'm just concerned, not concerned,
Yep.
curious, I guess. Is
So
about
Bill is letting me know that we do have a few. So typically what happens, the process is, bless you, Emery, the process is the school department makes the recommendation, the school committee votes that recommendation, then we go out and advertise. So we will put out the posters saying that we have openings, we encourage families to come and join our wonderful school community. At that point, you will start to see an increased interest in applications. So right now, it's a little quiet because we haven't been out there advertising and using our word of mouth with some of our families to say, hey, listen, you know, we do have openings, so come on in and fill out an application.
Well, do you want me to tell you the numbers I have so far that have applied for school choice that are new?
Please, yes, Jacqueline.
Okay, so there's 3 for kindergarten, there's 3 for first grade, 1 for second grade, 1 for fourth, 1 for fifth, 2 for 8th, and 2 for 9th.
That's more than our 11.
Yeah, so I don't know why we are really shooting for that 11. I mean, it just that's obviously these numbers here were really based on what we think we can accommodate. I know, and you know, let me just not beat around the bushes. I know that our minds are going back to the fact that we don't have a solution to the problem that we had in front of us, but we're not going to sit on that problem forever. We're going to have to solve it. And I think regardless of which option is the solution, we committed to making sure that we had enough classrooms. So any one of these numbers we should be able to accommodate. When you look at the class sizes on the right-hand side, and you look at the numbers, even with those additions, those are really reasonable numbers. The one grade where we will have the issue next year, I think that's the 5th grade, where we are saying we're not going to accept anyone. In fact, based on the numbers that Jacqueline just shared with us, she mentioned, I believe, one student potentially for 2nd grade. And based on this, we would have to say, sorry, we cannot really accept that student, right? Is that correct, Cheryl?
Yes.
Yeah.
And Emery, I just to jump in real quick, at least from my perspective, when I'm projecting the amount of revenue, I'm using those 11 seniors that are graduating, that in my projection, we are going to at least get 11 new school choice students. That's where that number is. I'm just using that for my sake to project revenue.
Right.
And also to determine what a level revenue budget is, right? So
right, 'cause
you don't want to get into a
less,
position where, right.
Anything less than those 11 students, we have to make cuts.
Right, and we had also talked about, with some of these discussions going back to our previous 6th grade discussions about census information and what incoming classes are, and I don't know that that is reflective in these charts, but I know that we were worried about incoming residents for this, so I'm sort of hung up on the 11 as far as like that's kind of our level set, but I don't want to necessarily say yes to 23 students in East Meadow because we don't know what our incoming residents are going to be, and we are already at a position where we're struggling with space in East Meadow.
So fair point in part of it, yes, I agree. But specifically only when they get to 5th grade at this point until we resolve that. But if you look at the class size charts, that number on that end piece, that's the projected number with the school choice. Is that correct, Cheryl?
Yes.
So, for instance, if you look at grade 1, even with the 3 proposed openings, that still allows us 6 new residents before we start to
Correct.
get above what we would, consider over. Grade
That's
2 is set at
intentional.
0, and that's because in 2 cases we're already on the high end of where we want to be. Actually, in all 3 cases we're on the high end. In grade 3, even with 5, that still allows us growth of like 8 new 3rd graders. Now, am I reading that right just by doing the math in my head?
Yes.
So even,
And I think that, yep. The idea here is that the 3 classrooms per grade level does allow that. And if you scroll down into the document, the resident enrollment numbers do lead us to needing 3 classrooms per grade level to meet the size, class size values that the community has. So with that, this, the idea that we have to have these 3 classrooms per grade level because of class size and what the community wants, and especially their K through 3 classrooms, then that does allow us the flexibility to add school choice in those classrooms, with the idea that we leave enough space for resident enrollment.
So how come pre-K is not on here?
We don't accept school choice in pre-K.
I thought we had a school choice student for pre-K.
I don't know. Is that?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that question.
So in the chart further down, there's East Meadow total enrollment and East Meadow resident enrollment. Pre-K is listed as 38. Pre-K is listed as 39. So resident enrollment is 38.
Okay, so there is one. We do have a case, and I can't get into the details of it. I would be happy to have a conversation with you privately.
Okay.
Yep.
Cheryl, that the kindergarten enrollment is listed as 47. That's what you have right now in kindergarten, if kindergarten opened tomorrow.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that?
Yeah, the kindergarten is listed as 47, current enrollment. That's what you expect to have, or that's what's enrolled or registered already for September?
Hold on, let me confirm with Bill. I believe, hold on a second. Remote, this is like, he's having trouble with audio.
So just to follow up with Jen's
I
question.
believe
So when I see
okay, so it's registered. Yep, it's registered.
So that, and there's a current school choice of 1. That's the preschool one you referred to a minute ago? Who's moving
Yes.
up? And
Yes.
8. Why would you'd want to add 8 into kindergarten? 48.
Again, though, even if you add in 8, that still leaves us 11 spots.
55, okay. 55.
May I just quickly go back to what I was saying? If you look at the right-hand column, is there anything that we believe, and those are based on the increased numbers, adding the proposed openings with the thinking that we may be able to get those numbers. But let's just go with that assumption. Is there, do we have any concerns with the classroom size on the right-hand side? And just to qualify, and going back to what I said earlier, next year we know that we're not doing anything with, the problem at hand. But we committed to solving that problem one way or another, whatever the option is, the following school year. The grade that will be affected next year currently is showing 0 addition through school choice. Again, just correct me at any time, Cheryl, if I'm wrong on that one. That's grade 5,
Yep.
correct? So do we see anything that seems out of whack in that last column that says class sizes, which includes the proposed numbers of school choice students?
Not until we get to grade 5.
But I completely agree, not until we get to grade 5, but we're not adding to grade 5, and then we're committed to solving that problem the following year, regardless of what the solution is. I'm not even going to get into what the solution will be, but regardless of what the solution is, we said, of all those options, we were going to add find additional classrooms so that every one of these grades had 3 classrooms, correct?
Okay. I mean, that's my biggest concern, and it has always been my biggest concern with the school choice
No, I
numbers.
completely understand that, yeah.
So grade 6 is listed as 48, but with 24 3 times.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't.
Yep, my error.
Yeah, okay, so
That was
fifth and sixth grade have historically been in the building, or not historically, but for the last couple of years have been the class that's 2 classes, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so just a little background. I think it was, and this is what, well, yeah, it's that 4th grade group that is leading the front edge of that bubble that it doesn't look like we have seen the back edge of yet. And I think originally a couple of years ago, we were kind of expecting to see the back edge of that bubble before we got the front edge as far up as it is. Does that make sense, Cheryl? Is that?
yes.
Yeah, I think.
Yes,
Emery,
and then I think, the addition of 40 students with the opening of the new building, that was of resident enrollment that, I don't think, as we've stated, that was anticipated. We expected a slower amount of growth at the elementary school, not all at once.
Yeah,
So that's my concern for going forward, is we don't really have a reliable number of any other additional residents that we could be coming in. So my
answer to that would be is that we've proposed in the grade levels the amount of anticipated entry into grade levels. So when you talk about 40 new students, those 40 new students don't go into 2 grades. Those 40 new students are going into K through 6. So you're looking at, 3 or 4 kids per grade level. So, did we, I believe 2 years ago or 3 years ago, have a crazy enrollment in grade 2 one summer? Yep, we did. 7 students in grade 2. Couldn't expect it, couldn't project it, and we had to solve that problem. But I think, again, the numbers can be spread out over the 3 classrooms in every grade level, which is, I think, to Emery's point, there's nothing in that right-hand column that we feel that we've proposed that's going to become problematic.
And even if we got a little bit more, it's still not going to be where we have way too many. It's just, okay.
Right.
So the point is there's still a lot of room to grow through all the grades, through all the classrooms, even with the proposed openings.
Right. And Cheryl, what I just did, is that correct? There are 224 in the proposed scenario, 224s in grade 6. Is that correct?
Oh, you updated it.
Yeah, just because it was kind of confusing me too,
Yeah.
Jen. Just I was looking
I
at
apologize. I did that right before I posted it. And, it was a correction that Stephen had seen, and I was like, oh yeah, okay. And then I messed it up. So
no worries.
let me just, whoops. No, it's this one. So I'm going to trust Bill. He's saying that, yes, you did it correctly.
And sort of off topic, but not really, as a general rule, who we accept for school choice stays with us until graduation? Or do they stay with us until 7th grade? Or do they stay with us until this transition to the high school?
So, yep, it's a great question. By law, we are a single school district. So students that are accepted with us do remain with us through graduation. If we were a regional district, just as a point of clarification, elementary schools, students that enroll as school choice students stay in the school that they are enrolled in, but they need to reapply to the regional junior, senior high school or regional high school.
Hey, Jen, you've been awfully quiet. Do you have anything?
If Jen Bartos, were you saying anything? Because you're on mute.
No,
Cool.
the
I'm
sixth
talking
grade,
to my
that's,
family that just brought me dinner.
Good.
I think Jen Mellett was.
I'm just trying to think from, just financially and business point of view. I just remember what it was like when we started losing teachers and students and support, because my focus is on the children. And if we start losing the support by not having and being able to afford for them to be there, we lose support for teachers and students. So from a business perspective, that's how I'm looking at it.
Well, I mean, that's, and correct me if I'm not getting, from what I hear, you're concerned that anything that impacts the budget in a negative way would potentially create an issue where we had more school choice out than in. Am I saying that incorrectly?
Yep, because that's what happened when it started happening. I've been doing this for 8.5 years. So it started about 8 years ago, and we started losing teachers. Teachers started quitting. Students started moving out because there's no support. So I don't want to run into that problem again. What I also don't like is that we are relying on school choice for operations, which is pretty sad because this is not how we're supposed to run a business.
The problem is,
And right now we have to have it to run operations, to adequately support the students.
To Jen's point too, right? So we see the.
I think we just lost Adam.
We did.
Can you guys hear me?
Okay, now you're
We
back.
thought you were posing.
All right. So I just want to keep in mind, to Jen's point, the $700,000 projected revenue, we also have to know that the town is charging us for the students that are our students that are going to other districts, and that's about $360,000. So the net of that is really the revenue that we have. It's not really $700,000. So to Jen's point, the more students that we don't accept, and then the more students of ours that go school choice out, we're at some point going to end up being on the wrong side of that number. So I just wanted to make that, again, remind everybody that it's not really $700,000. It's the net of that and what we're losing for kids that are school choicing out.
Right, and that if I may add to that, that on the second page, that bar chart, if you look at it, you can look at the magnitudes as well. But if you look at that and look at the bars, the lighter color shade on the bar chart is sending students from our district who are choosing to go to other districts. To Jen's point, we have been seeing that number going up until this year, where we, for the first time in, 8-9 years, stopped it. We did not improve it, but we stopped it. So we're looking to really improve those numbers. And she's absolutely correct that any negative change to our school structure has an impact on those outgoing student number.
And that's not a hard one to remember, because that was only like 2 or 3 years ago, right? I mean, it wasn't that long ago.
No, it's been going on for a good 7 years that we started losing students because we started losing staff because they had to be let go, or we lost good teachers because they were afraid that they wouldn't be supported because there's no extra staff to support them.
I mean,
it looks like 2011. Since 2011, that number has been going up, Mike.
Yep.
Fiscal year 2011. Let me clarify that.
and I get it. There's some things in there that we can maybe control, and there's some things in there we probably can't control. But again, why can't we try to control what we can, right?
Going back to the, if we stick with these numbers, and I know that once the vote was taken to keep grade 6 at East Meadow, that the issue all along was that then that would mean next year's grade 5 would have large classes. They'd go from 3 classes to 2. So now, space-wise within the buildings, which is always the issue again that relates to this, because that's the issue people try to connect here. They think, well, we're squeezing, but we're taking possibly school choice kids in. We don't know if they're fact. So we have enough space, because I count, am I correct, Cheryl? 21 classrooms needed for preschool through grade 6. Is that correct for September? Two preschool, 3 kindergarten, 3 grade 1, 3 grade 2, 3 grade 3, 3 grade 4, and 2 grade 5, and 2 grade 6.
I would
In
take
total, you would need
your
more than
count,
that.
yes.
Jeff. If you have 6 grades plus K, right? 6 grades plus K, that's your 7. So that alone would be 21 classrooms if you're going to go for 3. But I think you're saying in lower grades you would keep 2. Is that what?
No, I'm just judging. I'm just saying that we have that. I count 21 classrooms for preschool through grade 6 for September. 21 classrooms.
Oh, what we have currently. Sorry, I misunderstood what you were asking.
So that's all set. There's been no other thinking of any other switches for anything for space-wise or anything, so that.
Correct.
So that.
Yep.
If that fits, then it seems to me that these numbers, even if you got every single one of the proposed openings, is really not going to change anything except to deal with the fact that resident people move in, and you have no idea of if anybody's moving out now. I know it's a tough time too. I worry about school choice. If school doesn't open the rest of the year, people are not going to have reasons to look to go elsewhere. Sometimes people run into reasons, for issues happen within the school or classroom, and then they want to go somewhere else. But if school stays on this way, you might get very few at all, even if we advertise all of them. But that remains to be seen. That remains to be seen.
But that's a good point, Jim.
Yeah, it just remains to be seen, but you got to give it the best effort. Obviously, people are concerned, anybody's concerned about elementary school and class sizes. Not as much as the high school, because kids, the format is different. You can take more kids into the classes. I mean, taking 31 new high school kids, school choice, probably won't create too many issues. I'm sure for some classrooms or teachers or subjects it might, but overall, I'm sure they could be taken in there easier. But the whole idea is to get someone in grade 1 and have them stay for the rest of their career. That's the long-term effect, and that's the best thing. That's what we did way back when we started this in the 90s. That's what we wanted. Someone come and stay right to the end.
Yep.
Hopefully when they leave, like you're talking here, 11 have left. We want to at least replace those 11 plus if we can.
So here's the thing too, we're looking at 6th grade as potentially being a problem. We have notoriously students that leave in 6th grade. They go to other schools. They go to charter schools, they go to private schools, which start at 6th grade. So even if we do have that, by the time they get into 6th grade, we're going to be losing students anyways.
Well, the problem though is actually with 5th grade. So 6th grade, yes, I can kind of sort of see that, but
by
right
the
now,
time some of those kids get to 6th grade, they're going to be gone.
Hopefully not.
well, I've been working off the assumption that was kind of taught to me over the last couple of years, which is really exactly what Jim was just saying. It's like, get them in early, and that's what helps build that big pipeline into the high school. Maybe it's not accurate, but that's kind of the assumption I've been working with. How many? So if you have you have those openings for the high school, would we even typically see that many get filled in the high school?
Yeah, no, we typically don't. But we don't want to also be in a position where we didn't open the seats if we did have a student interest. I believe we had, according to Jacqueline, 2 and 8 and 2 and 9 already. So if we do put out advertising, we would likely see more at Granby Junior Senior High School, but the likelihood of us getting 31 is very low. But we do like to, put out what we can reasonably accommodate.
It just seems to me that when you get into that age, and you even want to move your house, you usually have to try to convince the kids that they can stay in their old school because that's where their friends are. I mean,
Yeah.
I mean, that's exactly what my neighbor is. I mean, in order to move, they had to say to the child that she can stay in South Hadley, and and that's where she goes.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's where all of her friends were. All right, any other further discussion? I know, can't see a lot of the committee. I don't know how to control who I see and who I don't see, but.
Mike, if you're on your phone, just swipe to your left and you'll be able to see multiple people.
All right, I can see some people on the top. I can see Jen and I can see you. I guess at this point, what do we do? Do we vote?
I would think the thing
Someone
is,
has a motion, yes.
it seems to me these numbers should be able to work, and I know we're not going to get them all, but it seems like it's worth the effort.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm going to keep to myself.
I'll make a motion to approve the proposed school choice numbers for school year 2020, 2021.
I'll
Is there a
second that.
Okay.
I'll second that, Mike.
Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Okay. I think that's the longest we spent on this discussion, and this is my third year. So the next item is the vote, the grade 6, a pilot.
Yes. So I need to apologize to everyone. It was not intended to be a vote. I feel like it created a bit of storm out there. I apologize. One of the things that I think we're learning to do now in this environment is communicate differently. So when we're creating the agenda in the past, typically what would happen is Mike, I meet with Mike, the chair, every Wednesday. We go over things that are happening, things that are going to be put on the agenda. I then share those with Jacqueline. Jacqueline then shares them back with Mike to make sure that the agenda is accurate and it gets uploaded and sent to you folks. So clearly this agenda did not go through that process. I will admit I was extremely distracted, really focused on trying to get remote learning up for people. And as you all know, some very personal things for me. So again, I do need to profusely apologize for the agenda and the condition of the agenda as it went out. Because there were some things, as Adam was talking about, that really were just on our mind, but we're not really ready to have any information for you. So all of the things around the building use, the increasing lunch prices, the increasing threshold, that I take, and I apologize again for, and really this one is one as well. I did not intend this to be a vote. I intended just to have a conversation about potentially reaching out to our grade 5 families to see if there was interest in moving a single class of grade 6 into Granby Junior Senior High School. And the reason for that is in our focus groups and in conversations afterwards, I did receive feedback that we did have families that were interested, and we also had staff that were interested. And I did want to give those people a voice in this forum and just put out if there was potential for a one-year solution to really gain us some time, I think, to address the long-term issue. So my request was going to be to discuss that, and I did not want to go any further by asking people. So I wanted to bring it forward and just say, you know, my intent in this conversation is to just send out a Google form to see if people would potentially be interested as fifth grade parents having only one classroom at Granby Junior Senior High School, as we were planning for in the presentation.
So it's really, there's really nothing to even really discuss here because we don't have anything to discuss because we don't have anybody moving.
Anybody?
Who's going to actually move right now? Right now, all you're saying.
I don't. I
did
don't.
hear some
In order
interest.
for
Can
me
I reach
to
out to people?
understand if this is, in order for me to understand if this is even a possibility, I would need to go out into the grade 5th community and ask. And I did not want to do that without bringing that forward to the committee. But I do think it's worth the ask because I have received the feedback, and I think it's an interesting solution for the one-year issue, actually provide us some insight into a longer-term solution.
So I appreciate the fact that we're trying to be creative and think about these things, but one of the things that I think then we're adding to the pile is if you're pulling one class away, the kids are divided. Like physically, there's one class that's in the high school and one class that's at East Meadow, but there's also kids that the way they team is they switch back and forth. So now you're impacting the education of the kids that are remaining or the other kids that are staying. Like, and there's benefits of that because when they do get to 7th grade, they're really starting to pass between classes and everything. So unless we're starting to talk about trucking the kids back and forth across the parking lot, I feel like the kids that stay or the kids that go, depending upon their need, like I know for the current 5th grade right now, there's the Patriots and Red Sox, and I don't know what they're called in the current 6th grade right now, but they switch their time back and forth, and then the specials and things like that. Like how, I know it's a thought, but these are the things that come to my mind almost immediately is there's the downstream impacts of doing something like that.
So Cheryl, if you don't mind, just to follow up on that one. Is there a threshold for this? That is, if 5 people, raise their hands versus, because Jen mentioned the classroom.
Yeah.
Do we even have any inkling as to what this means in terms of the numbers that will be a meaningful pilot for what we're doing? Or
So in speaking, in speaking with Bill, we were looking at minimally 17. And maximum 25.
So that means if we don't have 17, you said?
Right.
17 minimum. So if we don't have 17, this basically is not something you want to do. Okay.
Well, it is difficult because to Jen's point, if you take less than that, then that would negatively impact the class size of the students in East Meadow. So I do think that you have to be cautious when you consider a cutoff. We've talked about 17 being that cutoff, and that's why.
Yeah, I agree, and I just wanted the clarification, and that's why I wanted to follow up on Jen's question, which, Jen, thank you for that. That was a good question.
Yes.
But then you'd have the other class would have 31 kids. If you send 17 over, you'd have 31 kids in the other class. If I'm looking at that correctly.
Well, yes, I agree, but that's with the addition of 4 new choice if they get 4 new choice in 6th grade. But yes,
so
yes.
talk 30 kids or so,
Yeah.
Oh, hold on.
So is that number, Cheryl, based on the 44 that we have now, your threshold, or was
Right.
that with the 48?
I believe originally the conversation was with the 44.
Okay.
Yeah.
That'd make more sense.
Yep.
And then again, I just want to make sure we're all on the same page. This is really just letting us know that you want to go out and ask. if anybody would be interested.
Yes.
There's no more commitment
Yeah.
beyond that.
Yep. No, it's really data gathering, but I am very cognizant of the emotion behind this issue. So I certainly didn't want to do anything that you were not aware of that could have been perceived in some way as going around you, behind you. That was not my intent. This has come up as in conversation with a few people, families, teachers at the administrative level, wanted to bring it forward and see, it really just collect some more data around the idea.
Well, it came up this way anyways, right? I mean,
Yeah.
So what exactly is the end game of the pilot? Is it is the gestation of this because if we move the 17 kids or we take one classroom away, like what is the benefit on the flip side of doing the pilot?
So I think, as Jen was talking about, from a business perspective, it does solve the class size classroom issue for 1 year. The benefit, I think, to the teachers and to the students is to gain the excitement of participating in an innovative classroom, because the proposal has always been to be innovative, to do a different kind of structure and schedule that allows children and the teacher to focus on problem-based learning and really social emotional support that comes out of the guidance office and the social workers, the student support suite. So I think the benefit also is, and I know that, people have had some concern about, this idea that we're being guinea pigs, but we wouldn't recommend anything at the leadership team level that we didn't feel we could properly implement. As I've said before, the majority of people on the leadership team have middle school experience. So we've built middle schools, we've built middle school programming. We're excited about that potential. And so to have a class which schedules itself and is instructed in a middle school mindset as opposed to elementary is something I think that can provide some input into the final decision about how to solve the classroom issue, but also will give some really good information about how Granby students respond to that change in curriculum and instruction.
And then what about the differences? I mean, how about equality?
Yeah,
So
absolutely. Yeah. Yep.
One class that's in one spot and one class that's in another spot, and everyone's going to be together in the following grade year. Now there's going to be some disparity between the curriculum that's taught, because in the high school version, it's the different version of the classroom like we've been talking about, and how do we make that up?
Yeah, well, I think, one of the things when we talk about innovation, that is, part of the question, which is how can we innovate? And how can we do that in a meaningful way? Will there be a difference in what is taught? Certainly in the problem-based learning classroom, yes. But in the content, no. The content would follow the curriculum. But it is this idea of STEM and project-based learning, I think, that we're trying to get at as an approach that's different in moving the kids.
I don't mind the creative thinking that would go into this, but knowing that, as you mentioned, it was such a volatile issue, and I didn't talk to every fifth grade parent, but I could sense that they'd rather have their kids stay in East Meadow. So I don't know how in the world you would even think of 17. I can see if you want to get 4 or 5, you might want to do this, or they didn't care, but I can imagine get anywhere near 17 who jump at this opportunity. And divide that small group as it is. It seems to me it's a pretty good group of kids, I understand. Why would we want to divide that at this point in time when we can make it work where they are? That's I look at it 2 ways, but I lean more towards, I wouldn't even go there doing that, but that's me thinking.
I mean, to be honest with you, I mean, what's the harm in asking, right? I mean, I'm not, I mean, from what everything that you're saying is that's going to be a tough sell. So ask, get your information. The worst case scenario is everybody comes back and says, we got 3. And then we move on.
Yeah, right. Yep. Well, and I think part of the difficulty now, given the fact that we're remote, this will be a difficult ask. It's not going to be the same as, having a meeting and going over, what it means, and we can't have people, it's going to be like this, it's going to be like, hey, if you're interested in this, come to this Zoom meeting and we're going to talk about what the potential of this could be. That's a little tricky. And certainly I would anticipate may affect how the kind of information that we get, but I don't think it should dissuade us from the consideration.
It's just a question. Would you be interested? Yes or no? We don't have to even do anything further, even if everybody said yes, right? I mean, it's just my opinion. I don't see a harm in just asking. But
Cheryl, what is the timeline for this? When do you expect to come back to the school committee and say, anybody responded or nobody responded? Here's the number. What would that timeline look like?
So we have April vacation coming up. We do have a meeting in April vacation. I would have to circle back to the leadership team. So it would either be that meeting on the 24th or the first meeting in May.
And that gives you enough time to actually plan for what Jen was saying, that the 2 classrooms in different buildings and understanding on how all that's going to work out.
Yep. So I think one of the things that has been, a huge concern, obviously, is, how to physically transition the students. Well, nobody's having the benefit of that now. If we are closed through the end of the year, we are not going to, to have those transitions. So we're going to have to do that differently anyway. So there's going to be a lot of planning, I think, that goes into that come May, so that we can virtually transfer students between the buildings. So I would anticipate that if we were able to have a class, we would just include them in that discussion, in that planning.
And again, that assumes we get whatever the threshold is. And I don't know if you're going to change that threshold now that we're looking at the 48 versus the 44, but.
Right. Yep.
And then for any school choice kid that comes in, do they then have the option of which place they choose?
We typically, I'm trying to think.
It doesn't really
the
apply.
time frame that we would receive. Yeah. That's a good question. I'll put that on the discussion.
Yeah, you have 4 openings, and what happens if you get a couple of them?
Yeah, where do they
go?
What would you want to do with them?
Yeah.
Allow them a choice?
We would definitely have to think that through. Yep.
Okay.
And then the other thing, I know it was brought up at one of the other meetings, and it was talking about the teaming and everything else. I wouldn't want the teacher that's remaining in the 6th grade at East Meadow to feel then left out, because as it was explained before, they don't really go over to make that middle school model work now. So if we're going to have a 1-1-1, we have to make sure that the timeline and everything else can line up so that this other teacher's not hanging out. And then, that has even more downstream effects of impacts of splitting the class.
Yeah. Yep.
Okay, so you don't need anything more from us at this point on this, right?
Well, do we have to vote to give her permission, or do we just say yes or no?
Well, she's only asking right now. She's not going to really do anything.
Okay.
So what are we voting on?
Oh, I thought we were allowing her yes or no if we wanted her to ask.
Well, does that require a vote? I don't know.
I don't know either.
Emery, Cheryl, any thoughts on that?
I just don't think it's the thing to do at this point in time. Whatever we've gone through and everything, I don't think it's the thing to do. Even if they all, because I don't think you're going to get the people who want to do that. It's going to be like creative thinking, but I can't imagine wanting to split a group of kids up like that. I just can't imagine that you'd have enough to want to do that. Even if they got 20 and 20, I just can't imagine we'd want to split them up like that. It's just not, I don't think it's just fair, you know? I know a long time ago.
Well, as I said in the beginning, yep. As I said in the beginning, I think that there are voices, and I think we can all agree to this, that there are voices that aren't being heard. And I feel like this is a way to, even if we don't get, if we don't meet the criteria, I think that we can understand and ask, you know, what is it about moving that interested you? And we can get more information from the community.
Okay.
At the same time, with the voices not being heard, respectfully, I mean, we made a decision as a committee. I mean, we don't go out for everything that we vote on and take extraneous comments on for people that they may not agree with the opinion of how we voted.
Well, it just might be helpful for Cheryl then, and for the rest of us to simply, vote whether we think she should even attempt to do it or forget it. It's one or the other. I mean, I could go either way, but I don't think it's a thing to do. But if three of you think it's okay to do, then I think should give her the blessing and do it.
So when I was sitting in some of those focus groups, there were parents that felt their kids were being, I don't agree with moving the whole sixth grade. I think that is a very trying year. And this is why I'm saying that the elementary school has to have support. Though I did hear other parents stating that they wish that their kids had more because they want more opportunities in the sense that the elementary school didn't provide as much for them. And that wasn't a lot of them, but I did hear it from parents just sitting and listening to them. And it wasn't everybody. So it's like the majority of the people that I heard wasn't that, but there were a few people that did have a concern with keeping their kids at a lower level in the elementary school instead of moving them up.
And I 100% agree, Jen. Like, I don't want my kid to be taught at a lower level, but that's part of the problem. I mean, if we're saying the only way we're going to advance our education for the sixth grade is by moving them to the high school, I don't really appreciate that, because my kid is going to be in the sixth grade.
The academics are going to be the same. It's just emotionally, some kids are not emotionally, by the time they get to sixth grade, they're more advanced than their peers. So emotionally, but academically, they'd all be learning the same thing.
Well, when we say more opportunities, it's not the same thing, because if there's more opportunities, it's not the same as what's being offered.
I'm just thinking emotionally opportunity instead of just academics.
Would there be budget impacts for the additional opportunities that have been outlined in the proposal?
Well, not to ask parents if they would be interested. We would have to go back and revisit, because we didn't build it for one classroom.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, I think,
Again, I'm just trying to test the waters to see if there's interest.
yeah, I'm kind of, I don't know. I get the fact that it's sensitive. Believe me, I get the fact that it's a sensitive issue. I'm just a little surprised that we're struggling to decide if we can at least ask a question. To be honest with you, I really think before that even happened, I think we would need to have a vote on it anyways to approve the move of one classroom over to the high school. Am I wrong in saying that?
No, I believe you're right. I'm just trying to inform the committee of what I believe is a next move with good intent. And if I got feedback that suggested we had numbers, we would have to go back to the drawing board, arrange. And again, I'm not going to go out and ask people like, hey, we are definitely doing this, sign up. It's more like, we have potential here. And would you have interest in this? And if there is enough, then like I said, we would go back, we would do the budget impact. I don't think that even if there was interest and we couldn't design it without budget impact or whatever the committee decided, then, it is still your vote at the end of the day to support the pilot program or not.
Right. So,
but I think you would have good information.
Yeah, I mean, at some point, there's going to be at least one more vote if we were to actually move anything.
Yeah.
And some people's points are you're not going to get that. Well, then there's no more votes. We just know, well, four people were excited or whatever number, but it didn't meet the threshold we were looking for, so it's done.
Yep.
Again, I don't know if this actually even needs a vote. It's just asking the question.
Mm-hmm.
Does anybody else want to weigh in to decide if we want to vote on this, or if we just want to let her ask the question and be done with it?
That's all. She's just informing us instead of just
Yeah.
doing it. She's informing us.
It's data collection. Can you hear me? Because I cannot hear everything all the time.
Yeah, I can hear you well.
Okay. Since it's data collection and the question being asked without saying that this is something that we're doing, then I think it's fine. It's just data collection.
Yeah, because we're going to have to vote if we decide to move a class over at that point in time. And at that point in time, we're going to want to understand what, if any, plans are around X, Y, and Z. What's the curriculum going to look like? Why is it going to be different? How's it going to be the same? Right now, this is just a, would you be interested? Yes or no? And if there's not enough yeses, then we're done.
Right.
Okay. I personally don't think we need a vote on this. It's just a question.
Mm-hmm.
Others disagree? Okay. We're going to move on to the next topic. This is always a fun one. Class size, grade 6. I mean, haven't we been kind of having that most of the night?
Yeah.
Is there anything specific we wanted to talk about here?
Again, I think this is an agenda item that got mixed up. I think I intended it to read as the school choice vote. So that's my error.
Okay. So this is really important because we still have that open issue that does need to be resolved. To Emery's point, we committed to solving, or the school committee committed to solving that issue before the end of the next school year. I think we need a standing item on the budget, we need a standing item on the agenda to keep that discussion alive so it doesn't get lost. The last thing that needs to happen is we end up in a situation where no matter what is decided, that we hear the panic and the upsetness of why are we rushing into this. If it's always on our agenda, I don't care what we call it, to be honest with you. I'd rather move away from something called a grade 6, because that just puts the frustration right into people's eyes right away. But that's my thought. And I'd really like to see something left on, I'd like to see an item on our old business from now until that's solved, just to keep us honest.
Can it go back to capacity?
Well, it's definitely not capacity because it was pointed out many times that the school is not at capacity. I think it's basically structure on how, how the classrooms are structured, in the sense that, are we using everything the way it should be? Because capacity means that, because it keeps coming up that you have capacity. I think it's how the building is being used, or is everything used the way it's supposed to be? And if there are changes in the laws that we have to accommodate certain things, then that has to be addressed also, because I think that's part of the issue.
I agree with
how-
that. And oops, sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I don't know if I'm the only one here in echo, but hopefully that's the case. So, following up on what Jen said, I think we know that next school year we're not going to be doing anything, but that also gives us the time to be able to discuss some of these things. You know, I agree with Jen Millett, your definition of capacity. It is really how the current structure is used, the classrooms are used, whether or not they're compliant with the laws and regulations. And then we need to look at what options are available, just like we discussed at East Meadow and elsewhere. And then we're going to find ourselves having more discussions probably and getting to a vote. That was my understanding. That was our commitment. But that's for the following school year. This gives us a good opportunity to gradually get there. The other thing that we need to probably discuss, I'm saying probably, but this is something that the school committee always talked about, is what does class size means to us? Because as we have been hearing from the members of school community, and even beyond the school community, the class size has been an important factor in their decision to be in Granby. So people even moving to Granby, they just looked at what type of school we have. And it was really an attractive factor for them to see that we don't have very large class sizes. We talk about a class size, but I don't know that we ever had the conversation around what that really means. I think that will be meaningful to include in this conversation, and then our decision eventually should reflect all that.
So, I mean, that's a great point, but are you saying that we don't have a defined number that we like to see for class sizes?
Well, apparently we don't, because those of us who have been on the school committee earlier, we did have an approximation that up to 23 in grades up to 4, and then 4, 5, 6 up to 25, right, or something. That's the ideal number that we were talking about. But we really want to make sure that we don't put ourselves in a situation where we say something, but it may mean different things to all of us. It's always helpful when it comes to terms and numbers or descriptions to make sure that we all understand the same thing. That would help our final decision as well. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, no, I get that, and I think it's a great idea. I just also worry about the flip side of that, where if if we say we like them at like 18 and all of a sudden there's like 19 and 1, I don't want somebody saying, well, you got way too many in this room, we have to do something.
That's why that's a great point. I think we went with that ideal maximum conversation, but even that may not mean much if we want to be more structured than that. But again, just going back to what I said, my point is that it would help for us to be on the same page as we discuss about class size and all the other options that we will need to revisit in the coming months.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, once that's established, I would love to see something like that put out there on a website someplace for all to see. Like this is what we believe in. This is the sizes that we believe in, and then nobody can point and say, well, we didn't know that, or how did you get at that number?
That's I will start by putting an analysis that was done by DESE, I believe in 2017, that I referred to in a couple of the previous meetings that we had. I will put it out there, or I'll share it with Cheryl and you. You guys can put it in the folders for upcoming meetings. It's a public document and can be shared with anybody who would like to see it as well. It would be good for all of us to really start looking at similar documents, similar numbers, and then eventually we get to that point where it all means the same thing, hopefully, to us.
Yeah, and then, like I keep saying, once we get to that spot, I just want that saved someplace where everybody in town can see it, and it's
Right.
available to everybody whenever they want to see it.
Yep, I agree.
You might not agree with it, but at least that's what we've decided that we want to stand for. Okay. For D, the budget request from the FinCom, again, just a quick update there. I did last week, I was asked to reach out and ask for some meeting times. I then I sent that out. I haven't received any information back from John, but I do know that Cheryl had sent him, I guess, the rest of the information he was looking for, so that he has it. So I don't. So the point is I'm not sure at this point if I should follow up and say, hey, I didn't get any dates from you yet, because I don't want to upset a cart that's not upset. Does that make sense?
That it does. Mike, do we have a sense as to what the new timeline looks like for budget hearing, town meeting? Was there any communication? Because last week when we met, there was some thought that possibly a communication was about to go out saying that the town meeting was being moved. Some of these required meetings were also moving due to the restrictions that we have.
So the last I saw was what we talked about last week. I know Adam had reached out to Chris, and the last we got back was it's under review, but I don't think they've come forward with.
Sorry, Mike, I didn't mean to cut you off. I just want to let you know I reached out to him today. I sent him an email today asking if there was any updates, and I haven't heard back yet from him, so I did follow up with him today.
So our sticking point
They are
right now.
looking for. Sorry, they're looking for school. Yep, they're looking for school space in June for the town meeting. We have not gotten any indication from DESE or the governor's office about the timeline for public hearing and how to conduct a public hearing, if we can conduct a public hearing. Again, that's legislative. So if there's a change, it's going to have to go before the legislature in order for any of the municipalities to get some relief. I know it's under discussion. Like I said, they're looking at early June, potentially, but we have not gotten any final information yet.
So Emery, I think to your point, John has, I believe, everything he's looking for. I'll reach out to him one more time just to confirm if there's anything more that he is looking for. But I'm okay with us moving forward with what we need to do as is. The only thing we're going to struggle with at this point is how to do the hearing.
Yes.
Okay.
I nodded to that one, but again, just this goes back to the previous topic that we had. Are we all on the same page, and are we all saying the same thing? And I mean this with all candor, that when we go to the town, hopefully we will all have discussed and agreed on what that budget means, what that budget looks like, so that we don't have surprises, and the numbers don't match and all that. And that's why the meetings that we've been having with the Finance Committee and the Select Board in the past few years, they've been very helpful. By the time we got to the town meeting, we already knew what numbers we had agreed to and what all the discussions were already behind us.
Yeah, and I really agree with that. The point I'm trying to make right now, though, is he responds to me when he's looking for something, but when I ask for meeting dates, I get nothing.
Okay.
But I will reach out to him again. I don't have an issue with going back to him. I just want to make sure that I'm not seen as trying to provoke something when I'm really not. I'm just trying to put, I'm trying to make sure we're all set. And if he needs something from us, we're available.
Right. So my request, Mike, would be, aside from a date, whether or not we will be meeting a date, if we can ask whether or not we agree on the numbers, whether it comes at a meeting or in writing, that's fine. Whether or not we agree on the numbers, it would be good validation of the fact that we are on the same page. Then absolutely. Then if there's no need to meet and that's what they say, that's fine.
Okay, I will ask him for at least that. I'll say, I haven't heard from you. I just want to make sure we're all set. And if not, can you let me know? And if so, can we just confirm that this is what we're looking at? Okay.
Thank you.
Jim, did you have anything on that? Because I know you're usually pretty.
No, but obviously the issue is that you brought up last time was wanting the 305, this override money. If that hasn't come up your way again, then maybe they have rethought it. If you have not heard anything else, then what you're doing is the correct thing. Just find out, make sure we're all clear, and let it go. Because it is hard to meet. These are tough times. It's hard to meet. So follow what Emery says. As long as the numbers are good, you're fine. Whether you communicate them in writing, so there's no surprises whenever the town meeting is held or whatever happens down the road.
Okay. Yeah, and I know in the years past, especially around now, we're not the only thing they look at. So I know they're also quite busy with the issues of trying to meet. So
right.
I will reach out again and try to put some sort of an end to this, either in writing or with a meeting. Okay.
Right.
We just got an email from Jay Joyce that says the annual town meeting is being planned for Monday, June 8th.
Ah.
It just literally came through. My phone just buzzed.
So that's really what
it's the subject of the email. There's no body or anything.
So that's really
Jay
it.
must be watching YouTube.
So that's really
Jen,
a
what
3-week.
day is it?
Says Monday.
Is it a Saturday or a Monday?
A Monday.
Monday.
So then I'll also reach out to Jay and find out at what point do they need our final number. It was his second meeting in April, but that was with the May meeting, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So this goes back to something we had asked about last week, but what about, I think you said, Cheryl, that it was legislative, and so you probably just answered it, but I'm going to ask anyway. As for the people that terms are up, if elections, and where we stand with all of that, like what do we do? Because they only have 2 meetings left.
Yeah, we haven't gotten guidance on that yet.
Oh, and you froze out and I can't hear anything you're saying.
She said we haven't.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, we haven't heard anything yet.
I think she said if your name begins with a J.
You continue.
Oh, she can't hear us. Can you hear us, Jen? No.
I think it's on Jen's side.
Yeah.
Okay, school committee goals is still on here.
I think that says my connections.
I don't know. It just got really weird there for a second. School committee goals is the next item. Can everybody hear me?
Yeah, it's fading in and out though.
Okay, school committee goals is the next item. I thought we wrapped that up last week. We agreed to stay with the goals we had.
That's correct. The idea was the strategic plan had items that included the school committee as stakeholders, and we thought we should just, since we only have 1 more year left on that strategic plan, let's just pursue those and make sure that they come to their fruition.
Okay. And I'm going to move into stand-in reports. I'd like to close with Cheryl's. Sorry, Cheryl. If nobody minds, I'd like to move into Adam's reports for the business office.
Sure. The only report I have really is what Emery touched on before regarding transportation. Transportation and paying vendors for services that have not been rendered as we kind of move through this situation that we're in. So the last few weeks we've had calls statewide with Jay Sullivan at DESE talking about how we should pay vendors, and particularly transportation and special education vendors. And I touched on this last meeting. So there was some guidance. The guidance from the state is that we should be doing everything possible to make some sort of payment to these vendors in order to help them through this difficult time. In the CARES Act, which is part of the stimulus that was passed by the federal government, again, there was guidance in there saying that every district should do their best to pay portions of contracted services. That's all well and good, but for us, Mass General Law, Chapter 41 is pretty specific. And again, to Cheryl's point, it's a law. So unless something changes legislatively, that law states that we don't pay for services that haven't been rendered. So that's where we're at right now. So I was on a phone call yesterday with all or most of the districts in the Commonwealth that use First Student as their regular day bus vendor. And for the most part, everybody's on the same page that even though there's been guidance from DESE, which again, first of all, DESE doesn't really govern how we pay vendors. We really need some guidance from the Attorney General, the Inspector General, but not necessarily DESE. But their guidance has been do your best to pay these vendors. So I was on a call yesterday with all the districts in the Commonwealth that use First Student to try to come up with some standard language for an MOU for all of our contracts that would try to pay First Student for portions of the contract. And from the people that spoke, I was one of them to kind of give my feedback. From the people that spoke and who have talked to their First Student representatives in either their region, wherever they may be, the biggest question was, well, are you laying them off? Are your drivers collecting unemployment? How do we know they're collecting unemployment? There's a lot of questions that First Student couldn't answer and haven't really answered yet. So that was the basis of the phone call. I have some notes, Mike, that I forwarded you the email of the notes from the call yesterday, and you can share them out with the committee. So that was that phone call yesterday. It was kind of just a phone call to get some general ideas of how people were handling their contact with First Students. Some of them have asked their regional directors, liaisons to provide some cost breakdowns of rental facilities, fuel, drivers, what it costs to pay the driver. So that some of that work has already been done, and that's going to get shared with us hopefully within the next few days. But then today I talked with Mark Chapulis and Andy Paquette, who are in Belchertown and Ware. And we're going to try to reach out to at least the districts in our area, in our region that use First Student, and kind of see how we should move forward with either its language, an addendum to our current contract, if it's just an MOA to our current contract. We're not really sure how we should do it. I know Andy was going to reach out to Fred and Russ, our attorneys, for some guidance. But for right now, there's just a lot of guidance from the state, again, to do our best to pay these vendors. But there really hasn't been any decisions made saying we do or we don't have to pay. And for the most part, everyone is just sticking to the Mass General Law 41 that says you don't pay for services that haven't been rendered. So that's where we're at right now. Andy was going to send an email out to gather some information from our regional first student representative. And as soon as we get that back, I can obviously share that with you guys.
Sounds like there's a problem here because, like, what's going to happen if we pay them and we're breaking the law, right? I mean,
So yeah, so again, the decision is really at the town's discretion, I would say. Again, the law, as it's written, prohibits us from paying for services that haven't been rendered. Now, with that being said, if Steve, being the treasurer, and Chris, being the town administrator, say it's okay, like, we understand the situation, we know what's going on, we'd like to extend some payment to them, they at the end of the day, let me go back. It would start with the school committee first. You guys would have to approve that, and then ultimately Chris and Steve would be the final approvers for paying for services that haven't been rendered to us. And that was part of our discussion today with me, Andy, and Mark, about how we should kind of propose this to school committees. They, if you guys want to weigh in and kind of guide us, we're not there yet, but it's certainly a discussion that you guys will play a part in probably over the next couple of weeks.
okay.
Again, it's just it's a interesting, obviously a difficult time, and again, at least for the financial piece of it, DESE can provide whatever guidance they want to us, but again, they don't govern the fiscal part of us. That would, again, we're hoping we're going to get something from the Attorney General or the Inspector General. We're all in agreement that that's probably not going to happen. But again, DESE can guide us as much as they want, but we don't have to follow that guidance.
No, I get that. I just have I guess I keep getting stuck on, I get it. I kind of want to make sure that we have what we need, and I want to be fair and right, but at the same time, we're not getting the services. The law prohibits us from paying them unless we get the services. I don't know what more.
Right, and the one of the many arguments, and I don't want to call them arguments because they're not really backed, but one of the arguments is, well, we're going to have problems hiring our drivers back once school starts, and or at least my response was, well, I'm not sure where your drivers are going to go in the meantime, because as far as I know, most companies are not hiring any new employees. So I guess don't threaten me with we won't have drivers when school comes back, because I just don't see them going and getting hired at other companies. And that's been the biggest statewide, been the biggest argument on first students is, well, we're not going to have drivers once it's time for school to start.
So I have a question. In the contract, do we make payment for fringe benefits, and how much would that be?
So again, it's an excellent question.
Because this is tax, just because I deal with the service side of things, and in the contract, we always make stipulations for fringe benefits. So if they have that in there, and we could use that if we can.
So it's an excellent question, Jen, and it's one that we've talked about, that in our contract, we just get charged a daily rate. So
Yep.
In that daily rate, obviously those costs are in there. Those aren't broken out in our contract. And what districts who have asked for that information throughout the Commonwealth are getting is no answer from First Student. And when I was talking to Mark and Andy today, First Student's a multi-billion-dollar national company. So for them to not be able to provide that type of breakdown at the ask of an email is kind of hard to understand. So yes, those costs are in our daily rate, but districts have been having a hard time getting that breakdown from first student.
All right.
Because, so that's been the discussion is, if we're gonna pay, we don't mind paying for some of those costs, right? We're not gonna pay for drivers, we're not gonna pay for fuel because you're not using fuel. We'll help you pay for renting, we'll help you pay for some costs, but you have to give us some details behind that so we can make an informed decision on what we're gonna pay.
Okay.
All right, anything else for Adam?
No?
Okay, I'm assuming, Jen, did you have a CES meeting?
Nope.
I didn't think so.
I had discussed that last week. So
Okay,
there's no meeting. The next meeting I think is in May.
be interesting to see if they're going to try to do something via Zoom or if they're actually going to try to
No,
do
we
it
did
where
it. I said last week we did a Zoom meeting.
Okay, all right. But then we'll move on to Cheryl's superintendent report.
I do not have one tonight.
Okay,
I'm tired.
I don't blame you,
Sorry.
Cheryl.
Next time. I would like to say though, and with all kidding aside, thank you very much to the staff, and that is all staff, that I don't even want to list all the criteria because I know I will forget some, but every single one of our staff members have been simply amazing. They have been working above and beyond. They've been flexible. They've been supportive. They've been kind and respectful. They've been engaging to each other and to our families in ways that I can't even and could have ever imagined. And I think it just says so much about really the town of Granby and how they pull together in a situation like this. It's just been an amazing thing. And the other thank you I have is to Alex from GCAM, who has really taken over the coordination of our meetings at this point. So thank you very much to Alex for creating the Zoom meetings, working with us to make sure that we're safe while we're online, and hopefully we're not Zoom bombed in any way because we do send our invitations out publicly. So we are cautious of that. But thank you to Alex for all of his hard work and really all of his knowledge and experience getting our meetings live and streamed and back up on YouTube when we're done. So thank you to everybody.
okay. Anything else from any of the other members? So then I'm going to have to read this thing, right, for
Yes.
the next session. We're going to, and just so we're all on the same page, we're going to close out of this, just X out of this, and I'm going to click the link that was in the other email for the next session, right?
And Jacqueline will need to call, no, you're right.
Yeah,
So she'll need
Yes.
to, so she'll need to call the roll after we vote, then we'll just all close out of this close out of this Zoom and we go into the link in the other Zoom.
Then we're coming
Yes.
back to this though.
But yes, we are coming back to this open meeting.
Okay, and then to get back into this open meeting, we'll just re-click that first link.
We'll find out.
My intent actually is to not close out of this link and just, I have the email up. What? Hold on, let me see what happens. If I lose you all, I'm really sorry.
I don't think you can be signed into more than one Zoom session at a time.
No, it only can be one.
Yeah.
Yeah, and my fear is
The meeting to come back in.
Have to create another meeting for you guys after the executive session. Just let me know when you guys are done.
so I'll read this, we'll vote, we'll go into executive session, we'll come back, but we have to close out of this. I would also be concerned just from my own perspective, if I'm saying something in the other window, can somebody hear it in this window, and then is it really the executive session?
Yep.
So I'm gonna close out of this, just so everybody knows, and then I'll re-click that first link. Right, so,
Should we time bound our executive session for those that are not going to be in it, so they know when we're coming back or when to expect us back, or because it goes back to open meeting, right? So
well, I don't mind doing that. I don't know how long it's gonna take us to do that executive session. I don't know if Cheryl would have any ideas. I don't know if this is a quick 5 to 8 minute thing, or if it's gonna be more around the half
Well, I typically expect a lot of what we're going to do to be quick.
Yeah.
And then it's not.
Yeah, how does that happen?
I don't know how that happens. I've been at this a while with you guys, but really this should be a blessing and a back at this meeting. So it really should not be long.
Before we drop out, since we've been sharing what Jay has been sending, one of his emails says that all elected officials remain in place until town elections are held.
Oh, okay.
So, Jen, to your question.
Okay, so then I vote to enter into the executive session under Mass Law, Chapter 30A, Section 21, Part A3, to discuss the strategy with regard to collective bargaining, as doing so in an open session may have a detrimental effect on the bargaining positions of the committee. The committee will return to open session. I need a roll call vote.
Mike, hold on a second. Mike,
Yep.
I had sent you language regarding the MOA that needed to be read,
Do I need to read this out loud?
the COVID-19.
Is that in an email to me?
Yes.
You send it today?
Yes.
Could you resend it, Cheryl?
Yep, I'm trying to find it as we speak.
Thank you.
And it's something I have to read before we go in?
Yes, because it's negotiation for an MOA and not for
collective bargaining.
Collective bargaining for the next agreement.
Yeah, because that'll get us,
okay, here it is.
Did you use regular mail?
This is where my bandwidth is going to be an issue. I'm going to actually send it to Emery and see which one of you gets it quicker, if that's all right.
Yeah, and it's all right if Emery reads it rather than.
So we just need to state that the school committee will be reviewing negotiations regarding COVID-19 MOA.
I got it. That's all I got to say. I vote to enter executive session. Do I have to do the whole Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A?
You already did that
No,
anyway.
you did that already.
Okay.
Yep.
So the school committee will be reviewing the negotiations regarding a COVID-19 MOA. the school committee will be
Yes.
returning to open session. Okay, now I need the roll call from Jacqueline.
Okay, Mr. Simpson,
Aye?
Mr. Petrus,
Aye.
Ms. Bartos,
Aye.
Mr. Everin,
Aye.
Ms. Mallett.
Aye.
So then tomorrow you'll start distributing the other documents, right?
The remote.
Yes.
Okay,
The remote learning and the MOA, for everyone's record, is the memorandum of agreement between the Granby School Committee and the Granby Educators Association regarding the state of emergency concerning COVID-19.
And I thank you all for passing that and approving it. I'm sorry, approving it.
Thank you.
thank you. I do want to say thank you to everything that's been being done for the kids.
Absolutely. Thank you all very much.
So with that, as much as I have loved spending all this time with everybody,
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
I was gonna say, I would accept, motions to adjourn at this point. Is there a second?
A second.
All right, so all those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right, I'll talk to you all later.